Let's be honest. When someone runs from a situation instead of facing it, especially one as serious as a relationship in crisis, that's not strength, that's avoidance. Walking out, disappearing, or fleeing when emotions rise and truths come out doesn't make a person mysterious or deep. It reveals their inability to handle discomfort and accountability. And when your husband fled that taping, he didn't just dodge a conversation. He dodged the truth, your pain, and the opportunity to grow up and face what he's done or failed to do. You have to ask yourself what kind of partner leaves when things get real. You can't live in a state of denial and expect change to magically happen. If you keep minimizing this behavior, brushing it off, or blaming yourself for his flight, then you're choosing confusion over clarity. This relationship won't improve by ignoring red flags or playing the what-if game. You have to confront what is, not what you hoped it could be. Your reality will never change until you're brave enough to face it, to speak the truth out loud, and to stop making excuses for someone else's behavior. And here's the truth you need to own. You are not responsible for what he did. You didn't push him away. You didn't make him leave. Those were his choices, and those choices reflect him. What you are responsible for is how you respond. Will you keep chasing someone who runs from you? Will you keep opening doors he keeps slamming, or will you finally choose yourself, worth over his fear? People always tell you who they are, not just with words, but with actions, patterns, and silence. If he has consistently shown you that he can't be trusted, that he's emotionally unavailable, or that he prioritizes ego over empathy, then it's time to believe him. You can't build a future with someone who won't even show up for the present. Stop holding on to the fantasy version of him. The real version has spoken, through actions loud enough to silence your hope. You've likely been begging for trust, pleading for honesty, holding your breath hoping he'll stay. But trust isn't earned through promises or sweet words, it's earned through consistency, and if you have to beg someone to stay committed or invested, you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And you've played your part long enough. It's time to drop the act and walk off the stage with your dignity intact. There's no shame in admitting that you've felt abandoned, not just physically, but emotionally. Maybe he's been gone for a long time, even while standing in the same room. That hollow, disconnected feeling, that's what emotional abandonment looks like, and that's a wound that runs deep. But healing doesn't come from waiting for the person who hurt you to heal you. It comes from looking at that pain, naming it, and choosing to no longer carry what they dropped. You may never get the closure you're waiting for. He may never tell the truth, never apologize, never explain. And that's okay. Closure isn't about them. It's about you choosing to stop reliving the hurt, choosing to stop shrinking to make someone else comfortable. You are not broken because he left. You are not worthless because he ran. You are someone who was brave enough to show up, and that's where your power begins. Let this be the turning point. You've been hurt, but you are not helpless. Now is the time to walk forward into something better, with your head high and your heart open to something real. Your reality won't change until you confront it. That's the simple truth many people avoid because it's uncomfortable. You can't keep living in the shadow of what you wish things were. Hoping that time alone will fix things, or that love will somehow be enough to transform someone, isn't a plan, it's a delay. You've got to face what's actually happening. You have to be willing to stand in the truth, even when it's messy, painful, or not what you expected. Because truth is where growth starts. As long as you're sugarcoating, minimizing, or denying what you're going through, you're allowing the cycle to continue. Facing reality doesn't mean giving up. It means waking up. You can't afford to keep playing the waiting game with someone who runs at the first sign of accountability. The moment he fled, that was your message loud and clear. He wasn't ready to show up. He wasn't prepared to take responsibility for what he's done or how his actions have made you feel. You deserve more than someone who needs to be chased in order to participate in their own relationship. Love isn't a hide, and Seek game. It's built on presence, honesty, and showing up even when it's hard. It's not easy to admit that someone you trusted doesn't have the tools to build with you, but the longer you avoid that admission, the more damage it does to your self-worth. You can't fix what you won't face. And the longer you pretend everything is fine, the longer you stay stuck in something that isn't working. Your life isn't on pause waiting for someone to catch up. You can make decisions that honor your peace, your future, and your truth, starting now. Growth isn't about waiting, it's about choosing. Think about what it's costing you to live in denial. How many nights have you cried silently because he won't talk? How many times have you replayed conversations in your head, hoping they would make more sense the second or third time? That's emotional exhaustion, and it's not sustainable. You're not weak for wanting to believe in love, but strength comes in recognizing when it's no longer being returned. You need to stop investing in potential and start responding to reality. There's freedom in acceptance, not resignation, but clarity. When you confront what is, without flinching, you gain back control. No more wondering, no more questioning what you did wrong. You start seeing that you've been showing up for someone who won't even stay in the room. That's not partnership, that's performance, and you don't have to perform anymore. You can make peace with the truth and start healing from it instead of hiding behind it. Sometimes people think confrontation means conflict, but in reality, it just means choosing to no longer lie to yourself. It means you stop painting red flags white. It means you stop hoping someone will become who they promise to be, and instead you deal with who they've actually been. This isn't about blame, it's about ownership, owning your role, your feelings, your next step. It's about standing in the light and saying, "This is what's really going on, and I won't run from it anymore." When you stop running, when you stop pretending, when you finally confront the reality you've been avoiding, you open the door to something better, maybe not easier, but better. Real growth comes from real truth. And you're strong enough to face it, you're brave enough to sit in it, you're wise enough to learn from it, and most of all, you're worthy enough to come out on the other side with more clarity, more peace, and more power than you've ever had before. You are not responsible for his choices, only your response. That's a distinction you need to understand deep in your bones. People often internalize someone else's behavior, wondering what they could have done differently to prevent it. But the truth is, no matter how kind, patient, or supportive you were, his decision to flee was his and his alone. You didn't make him run, you didn't force his hand, and you didn't push him away. He chose that path, and it reflects what he's willing or unwilling to face, not your worth as a partner. It's easy to fall into the trap of self-blame when someone you care about lets you down. You start replaying every argument, every moment you raised your voice or expressed a need, trying to find the exact second where things went wrong. But relationships don't break because one person speaks up. They break because one person stops listening, stops showing up, or stops caring. You are not responsible for managing someone else's fear, shame, or refusal to deal with reality. That work belongs to them. Your response, however, is where your power lies. You get to decide whether you will keep engaging with someone who avoids responsibility, or if you will take a step toward self-respect. You get to choose whether you keep the door open for someone who has walked away, or if you will close it gently and focus on building something healthier for yourself. The only part of this situation that belongs to you is what you do next. And you deserve to make a choice from a place of strength, not guilt. Responding doesn't mean reacting. It doesn't mean sending angry texts, making desperate calls, or begging for explanations. It means pausing, breathing, and asking yourself, what do I need? What do I value? What kind of love do I want in my life? A mature response isn't about making someone else understand your pain. It's about recognizing it, honoring it, and not allowing it to control you. When you realize your energy is better spent healing than proving a point, you begin to take your power back. Sometimes your best response is silence, not because you don't have anything to say, but because you've said enough. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away without a dramatic exit, without begging for closure, without trying to make someone see your worth. If they couldn't see it when you were right there giving everything, they won't see it when you're asking them to look harder. Your response is a reflection of your growth, not their regret. This is where you draw the line, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, not because you want revenge, but because you finally understand that peace matters more than chaos. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they once occupied space in it. If someone runs from accountability, let them go. If someone refuses to grow, stop shrinking to meet them where they are. Your response can be rooted in grace and strength at the same time. The moment you stop owning someone else's mistakes, you make room to own your healing. Letting go of responsibility for his choices frees you to take full responsibility for your own future. You are not here to fix broken people who don't want to be fixed. You are here to live fully, love deeply, and be met with the same energy you give. His choices are his story to tell. Yours is just beginning, and this chapter is about reclaiming yourself. You are not responsible for his choices, only your response. This is one of the hardest truths to accept when someone you love lets you down. When he ran from the situation, when he chose to abandon the moment rather than face it, that was his decision. It didn't matter how much you hoped, how calm you tried to be, or how much you gave him the benefit of the doubt. His reaction was a reflection of where he is emotionally, not of anything you did or failed to do. You can't take the blame for someone else's fear, denial, or unwillingness to participate in growth. It's natural to ask yourself if you could have said it differently, done it better, or shown more patience. But asking those questions won't bring you peace. It only keeps you tangled in a web of false responsibility. People choose how they behave, especially when they are under pressure. When the moment called for courage, he chose to walk away. And that's not on you. That's the kind of truth that feels heavy, but it's necessary if you want to step into emotional freedom. There's a kind of relief in realizing that you can stop trying to control or explain someone else's actions. You don't have to defend him, excuse him, or try to understand every corner of his mind. You can simply say that was his choice, and let that be enough. Your healing doesn't have to be tied to understanding every detail of his behavior. Sometimes peace comes when you release the need to know why and instead focus on what now. Your response is where your power lies. It's where you take back control of your life. You get to decide whether you stay in confusion or step into clarity. You get to decide whether you keep engaging in the same cycle or break it once and for all. That moment when someone lets you down is also the moment where you decide how deeply you'll let it shape you. Will you let it define your worth, or will you use it as the moment you begin to choose yourself? Responding with strength doesn't mean shutting down emotionally. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means feeling the pain, acknowledging the loss, and still choosing not to chase someone who ran. Your response can be rooted in love for yourself. When you stop asking why they left and start asking what you need next, you begin to rebuild a sense of self that isn't dependent on someone else's participation. Sometimes the most powerful response is choosing silence over explanation, peace over chaos, and distance over drama. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You've already done enough, tried enough, and hoped enough. Now it's about responding in a way that protects your heart and honors your truth. That might mean creating boundaries, letting go of unanswered questions, or simply walking away with your dignity intact. In the end, his choice to run says everything about him. But your choice to stay grounded, to seek healing, and to move forward with intention says everything about you. You are not defined by who leaves you. You are defined by how you rise after they're gone. Your response is not a reaction. It's a declaration that your peace matters, your voice matters, and your future will not be held hostage by someone else's fear. Trust is not something you beg for. It's not a gift that someone holds above your head, waiting for you to earn it through silence, sacrifice, or suffering. Trust is built, slowly and honestly, through consistent actions, open communication, and shared vulnerability. When you find yourself constantly trying to prove you're worthy of someone's trust, you have to stop and ask why that person is holding it hostage in the first place. True trust is mutual. It's not a weapon. It's a bond that grows through truth, not manipulation. If you're in a place where you feel like you're always defending yourself, trying to clear your name, or constantly explaining your intentions, that's not trust. It's survival. You're trying to win over someone who has already decided to keep a wall between you. That's not a relationship. That's a performance you've been cast in without your consent. No matter how deeply you love someone, you should never have to chase their belief in you. If someone truly respects and values you, they won't make you prove yourself over and over again. When someone withholds trust, it's often more about their own unresolved issues than anything you've done. Maybe they've been hurt before, maybe they've built a habit of control, or maybe they just don't know how to trust anyone. But none of those reasons justify making you feel small or unworthy. You can be patient, compassionate, and understanding, but you should never accept blame for someone else's emotional baggage. Their inability to trust is their responsibility to unpack, not yours to carry. The hard truth is that begging for trust will never get you what you want. Even if they give in for a moment, it won't be real. It'll be temporary, conditional, and fragile. You'll always be walking on eggshells, wondering what new proof they'll need next. That's exhausting, and more importantly, it's unfair. You deserve to be believed when you speak. You deserve to be seen for who you are, not filtered through someone else's insecurity or control. Real trust feels calm. It feels steady. It creates a space where you don't have to second, guess every word, where you can be honest without fear of backlash, and where you are accepted even when you're imperfect. It's not that conflict won't happen, it will, but you'll be able to face it together, not against each other. If you're in a situation where trust is always in question, then you're not building something real. You're patching holes in something that's already crumbling. There's a difference between earning someone's trust and chasing it. The first is a mutual process. The second is a one-sided trap. You shouldn't have to spend your days proving you're not the enemy. And if someone keeps treating you like one despite your efforts, you have to ask yourself if they even want to trust you, or if they're more comfortable keeping you at a distance so they don't have to grow. Some people use distrust as a shield, not realizing they're also blocking out the very love they claim to want. At the end of the day, trust should never be something you beg for. It should be something that grows between two people who are both willing to show up, be real, and do the work. If you're the only one doing that, then it's not trust, it's imbalance. And the longer you stay in that imbalance, the more it chips away at your confidence, your peace, and your ability to love freely. You don't need to beg. You need to be somewhere you are trusted, believed, and safe. That's not asking too much. It's the bare minimum. Trust is not something you beg for. It's not something that should be dangled in front of you like a reward or held like a punishment. When someone truly trusts you, it shows in how they speak to you, how they treat you, and how they show up in the relationship. Trust is earned through honest effort and shared experience, not demanded through fear or intimidation. When you find yourself pleading for someone to believe you, or constantly trying to prove your sincerity, you have to ask whether you're truly being valued or simply being tolerated. A healthy relationship doesn't make you feel like you're on trial. It doesn't require you to relive your every word, explain your every move, or walk on eggshells to avoid being misunderstood. If you're constantly in defense mode, trying to convince someone of your intentions, then the foundation of trust just isn't there. And the absence of trust isn't always your fault. Sometimes the person you're with hasn't done the work to allow trust to grow, and instead of addressing their own fears, they project them onto you. You are not responsible for someone else's insecurities. You are not required to be perfect just to feel safe in a relationship. If someone can't trust you even after you've shown up honestly, consistently, and lovingly, then the issue isn't your effort. It's their unresolved pain. Some people don't know how to receive love without suspicion, and no amount of proving yourself will change that until they decide to heal. You can offer grace and support, but you should never lose yourself trying to calm someone else's storms. Begging for trust creates an uneven power dynamic. The person withholding trust begins to control the emotional rhythm of the relationship. They decide when you feel safe, when you feel heard, when you feel loved. That kind of imbalance drains your energy and blurs your sense of self. You start adjusting your behavior to avoid conflict, censoring your truth to avoid being doubted, and giving more than you're receiving just to keep the peace. That is not love, that is survival disguised as connection. The painful truth is that if someone wants to trust you, they will. They'll choose to believe in your actions, in your words, and in your consistency. Trust is ultimately a choice, and no amount of convincing can replace someone's willingness to take that leap. If you're the only one trying to build the bridge, then eventually you're going to fall from the weight of the effort. Real trust requires two people reaching toward each other with open hands, not one person clinging while the other retreats. When trust is mutual, it creates a space where both people can breathe. You don't have to fear being misunderstood or misjudged. You don't feel the need to shrink yourself or constantly overcompensate. You feel seen, respected, and secure, even during disagreement. You know that your heart is safe, and you're not waiting for the next moment of doubt to tear everything down. That kind of relationship is not only possible, it's what you deserve. You don't need to chase trust. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it. If they can't meet you with the same openness you offer, then it's time to stop begging and start choosing. Choose peace over tension. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose yourself not because you're giving up, but because you're finally ready to stop begging for something that should have been freely given from the start. Trust doesn't grow where fear lives, it grows where love is real, steady, and safe. Sometimes closure isn't about answers, it's a hard truth to swallow, especially when your heart is aching for understanding. You want to know why someone left, why they changed, or why they couldn't love you the way you needed. But some people will never give you those answers, not because they're cruel, but because they don't have the emotional capacity to look inward and tell the truth. They leave loose ends, unanswered questions, and wounds that feel impossible to heal. Waiting for their explanation is like standing at a locked door, hoping it will open just because you're hurting on the other side. Closure isn't something someone else hands you. It's something you choose to create for yourself. It starts when you stop searching for reasons that may never come. It begins when you decide that your peace matters more than their version of the story. You don't need their permission to move on. You don't need them to validate your experience. Sometimes closure is a silent, private moment where you say to yourself, "This happened, it hurt, but I will not stay stuck here." There is power in accepting what you cannot change. That doesn't mean you're okay with what happened, or that you agree with how they treated you. It simply means you refuse to let it define you any longer. Holding on to the need for answers can keep you trapped in a cycle of pain, constantly replaying conversations, reliving memories, and trying to decode mixed signals. But no amount of overthinking will bring clarity from someone who never offered it in the first place. You may never hear the apology you deserve. You may never get the truth spoken plainly. They might continue to dodge responsibility, rewrite history, or disappear altogether. That's not your failure. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of where they are emotionally and where they're not. You can't force someone to be honest, to be brave, or to meet you in the space of truth. What you can do is take back your own story and choose not to let their silence speak louder than your healing. Letting go of the need for closure from another person doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're finally ready to stop giving them the power to control your emotional peace. You're no longer waiting for them to make things right. You're deciding that you can make things right for yourself. That's strength, that's maturity, that's healing. It's a quiet turning point where you choose to move forward without needing their voice in your journey. It's okay to grieve the version of closure you never got. It's okay to feel sadness, anger, and even confusion as you learn to move on without the clarity you hoped for. But in time, you'll realize that your peace was never meant to be held hostage by someone who couldn't face their truth. You are allowed to release the past even if every piece of it doesn't make sense. You are allowed to heal even without the ending you wanted. You can close the chapter with your own words. True closure is the moment you stop waiting. It's when you stop looking backward, hoping that the person who hurt you will come back with the answers. It's when you accept that some people will never explain themselves, but that doesn't mean you're not allowed to move forward. You don't need every answer to find peace. You just need the courage to let go, the strength to forgive yourself for what you tolerated, and the willingness to write your own ending, even if they left the page unfinished. Your worth is not defined by who stays. Too often, people tie their value to the presence or absence of someone else in their life. They begin to believe that if a person leaves, it must mean they weren't good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, or worthy of love. But that's a dangerous and false belief. Someone else's decision to walk away does not diminish your value. It reflects their path, not your worth. People leave for all kinds of reasons, many of which have nothing to do with you at all. When someone exits your life, especially someone you care deeply about, it can shake your confidence. You may start questioning everything about yourself, wondering what you could have done differently to make them stay. But the truth is, love that's real and respectful doesn't vanish without a word. It doesn't flee when things get complicated, and if someone left, maybe it's because they weren't capable of giving you the kind of love and presence you deserve, not because you were lacking. It's important to understand that people are often driven by their own fears, wounds, and limitations. When someone walks away, they might be escaping their own truth, not rejecting yours. They might be avoiding responsibility rather than rejecting connection. In fact, some people leave when they see something real because they're not ready to face it. Their leaving says more about where they are in their journey than it does about where you are in yours. You're not to blame for someone else's unpreparedness. You are not a failure because someone didn't stay. People come and go for reasons you'll never fully understand, and their choices belong to them. What matters is what you do in response. Do you chase after those who walk away, hoping they'll see your worth? Or do you pause, gather yourself, and choose to stand tall in your own identity? Your value is constant. It doesn't rise or fall based on who chooses to see it. And if someone couldn't see your light, that doesn't mean it wasn't shining. Your worth is intrinsic. It exists whether someone compliments it or not. It exists whether someone commits to you or not. You have always had value, before the relationship, during it, and now after it. No breakup, no departure, no silence can erase that. You don't have to earn love by proving yourself. You don't have to keep people close by sacrificing who you are. The right people will stay not because you begged them to, but because they recognize your worth and honor it without question. When someone leaves, there's a hole, yes, but there's also space for healing. Space for truth, space for someone who will stay and who will choose you every single day without being asked. But before you can welcome someone like that into your life, you have to believe you're worthy of that kind of love. And you are. You are worthy of consistency, of honesty, of loyalty, and of being seen in your fullness without having to shrink or beg or bend. So let them go. Let them walk if that's what they've chosen. Your identity doesn't leave with them. Your story isn't over because of their exit. You are still here, still whole, and still enough. The fact that someone left may hurt, but it doesn't get to define you. What defines you is how you rise, how you hold on to your dignity, and how you choose to love yourself in the aftermath. That's where your true worth lies, not in who stayed, but in how you stayed true to yourself. You can't fix someone who refuses to participate in their own growth. No matter how much you love someone, no matter how much you try to support them, encourage them, or lead them toward change, it will never be enough if they don't want that change for themselves. Growth is a personal journey. It requires willingness, honesty, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths. If someone refuses to acknowledge their role in the dysfunction, then all the effort you pour in becomes a cycle of exhaustion rather than transformation. It's natural to want to help the people we love. You see their potential, their strengths, and maybe even the pain behind their behavior. You tell yourself if you just love them harder, if you're just a little more patient, a little more understanding, they'll eventually see it and want to grow. But people don't change because you love them enough. They change because they reach a point where they can't ignore their own reflection anymore. Until that point comes, all your efforts might only serve to keep them comfortable in their denial. When you carry the weight of someone else's growth, it eventually breaks you. You start to lose pieces of yourself trying to hold everything together. You sacrifice your needs, your boundaries, and even your sense of reality in the name of hope. But love is not supposed to cost you your identity. If helping someone heal requires you to stay in pain, then that's not healing. It's enabling. And the longer you stay in that space, the more you begin to confuse sacrifice with love and pain with purpose. There's a difference between being supportive and being responsible for someone else's journey. You can offer a hand, but you can't walk the path for them. You can speak the truth, but you can't force someone to hear it. When a person is committed to staying the same, no amount of pleading, crying, or explaining will change them. They may nod along, promise to try, even shed tears of regret. But if their actions never follow, then you're stuck in a loop of false hope. Growth takes effort, and effort reveals intention. If someone consistently shows you they're unwilling to take even small steps toward improvement, then you have to stop pretending they're going to suddenly wake up changed. Change is a decision, not a wish. It's not your job to drag someone toward better. Your role isn't to fix, save, or carry them. It's to be honest with yourself about what they're truly showing you and respond accordingly, even when it's painful. Letting go of the responsibility to fix someone doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who won't even bandage their own wounds. It means you understand that growth must be mutual for a relationship to thrive. One person cannot do all the emotional heavy lifting while the other watches. It's not selfish to want partnership instead of parenting. It's not cold to stop trying when the other person won't even start. At some point, you have to choose peace over potential. You have to stop falling in love with what could be and accept what is. If they refuse to grow, to reflect, to change, then the future you hope for with them is only a fantasy. You can't keep building a life on maybes and one days. You deserve a partner who meets you in the middle, who does their own work, and who wants to evolve, not just for you, but for themselves. You can't fix someone who won't participate in their own healing, but you can choose to heal yourself by letting go. Your worth is not defined by who stays. It's a painful lesson to learn, especially when someone you cared for deeply chooses to walk away. It's easy to internalize their absence, to start questioning if you were enough, if you did something wrong, or if you could have done more to make them stay. But the truth is, someone's decision to leave does not decrease your value. Their absence does not mean you're unlovable. It means they weren't the right person to walk with you through the journey you're meant to take. It's human nature to seek validation from the people we love. When they choose to leave, it can feel like they've taken a part of your identity with them. You might replay conversations, moments, and memories, wondering where things went wrong. You might even start reshaping yourself, trying to become the version you think they would have stayed for. But no one should have to change the core of who they are to be worthy of love. The right people don't need you to be anything but yourself. Sometimes people leave because they don't recognize your worth, and sometimes they leave because they do, but they're not ready for it. Your strength, your depth, your kindness might be intimidating to someone who hasn't yet discovered those things in themselves. When people are emotionally unavailable or unprepared to meet you where you are, their eggs, it is not a verdict on your value. It is simply a reflection of their limitations and readiness, not your desirability or capability. There's also a freedom that comes when you no longer tie your identity to someone else's decision to stay or go. You begin to see yourself through your own eyes instead of theirs. You remember that you existed before them, and you'll continue to exist after. You start to rebuild the parts of you that were silenced or forgotten, not for anyone else, but for you. Your worth becomes something you carry within, not something you try to find in another person's presence. The people who belong in your life will never make you question your worth. They won't make you feel like love is a reward you have to earn. They'll see you clearly, love you openly, and choose to stay not out of obligation, but because they recognize your value and want to honor it. When you stop clinging to those who left, you create room for those who are meant to stay. And they won't come to fix what's broken. They'll come to build something stronger with you. You are not a failed relationship. You are not someone's indecision or someone else's fear. You are not defined by the ones who walked away when things got tough. You are defined by how you heal, how you choose yourself, and how you continue to show up in the world despite the hurt you've felt. Every time you pick yourself back up, every time you learn to love yourself a little more, you are proving that your worth never left. It just got buried under the weight of someone else's departure. So if someone walked away, let them. Let them go without letting their absence write the story of who you are. Your value is not measured by who chooses to stay, but by how deeply you remain true to yourself. You are whole, even in their absence. You are enough even if they didn't say it, and you are still worthy of love that stays, grows, and respects you just as you are. That truth will carry you farther than any apology or explanation ever could. Healing begins when the pretending ends. As long as you continue to act like everything is fine when it isn't, the wounds stay open. They may not be visible on the outside, but they live inside your thoughts, your reactions, and your silence. Pretending that you're okay just to make others comfortable only delays the healing you deserve. It's not your job to carry the weight of appearances. Real healing begins the moment you're honest with yourself about how much something hurt, how deeply it affected you, and how long you've been avoiding the truth. There is a certain comfort in denial because it protects you from the immediate sting of pain. But over time, that denial turns into emotional isolation. You start to lose track of what's real because you've built an identity around survival rather than truth. You tell yourself stories that soften the blow, excuses that justify their behavior, and reasons to stay in places you've outgrown. But none of that brings peace. It just keeps you stuck in a version of life where you're always shrinking, always sacrificing, and never fully present. Ending the performance doesn't mean collapsing. It means finally allowing yourself to feel what you've been pushing down. It means admitting that you're tired, that you've tried, and that carrying this emotional burden alone isn't working anymore. There is strength in vulnerability. Saying I'm not okay is not weakness. It's the first honest step toward becoming okay again. The pretending may protect your image, but the truth protects your spirit. And your spirit is what needs care right now. Letting go of pretense allows you to reconnect with your real needs. You stop doing things out of guilt or fear and start doing things that nurture your well-being. You begin to recognize what brings you peace versus what drains you. Healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, like saying no without apology or walking away without making a scene. Sometimes it's choosing rest over pleasing others or admitting you need help instead of pretending to be strong. The people around you can't truly support you if they don't know what you're carrying. Pretending creates distance. It keeps the connection on the surface while you suffer underneath. But when you speak your truth, even softly, you open the door for genuine support. You allow people to show up for the real you, not the version you present to keep the peace. And if they can't handle that truth, then maybe they're not meant to walk with you into your next chapter. You deserve a life that isn't built on hiding or holding back. You deserve relationships where you can breathe, speak, and exist without editing yourself to be more palatable. Healing will ask you to tell the truth, not just to others, but to yourself. What are you holding onto that's breaking your heart? What part of your life have you been pretending is okay? The sooner you answer those questions, the sooner you can begin to let go of what's weighing you down. No more pretending, no more masking pain with a smile, no more pretending it didn't matter, that you're unaffected, or that you're over it when you're not. Healing doesn't begin with answers, it begins with honesty. You have the right to speak your truth, even if your voice trembles. You have the right to be whole, not just functional. And once you stop pretending, you'll find that the pieces of you that felt broken begin to feel real again. That's where healing begins, not in perfection, but in truth.